Welcome to Season 3 of the Predator Podcast. On this podcast, we'll talk about all things predator hunting. If you're a predator hunter or wanting to become one, you're in the right place. Here's your host, Drew Schlim.
Quick reminder for you guys this weekend, March 15th, I'm going to be up at the Minnesota Deer and Turkey Classic at the River Brothers Outfitters booth. So if you guys are in driving distance to the Minneapolis area, I'll be at the Minnesota Deer and Turkey Classic in Chakopee this Saturday for the day. So come see me, hang out with me, and here's the episode with Jim. All right, guys, Predator Podcast, Season 3. I have Jim Myers on today. And he's a mountain lion hunter, and more specifically a mountain lion caller, which I think is really unique and cool. So he reached out to me. We were able to link up and get together to record a podcast. I'm really interested to pick his brain, hear about his mountain lion excursions, hear about Jim and his background. So, Jim, thank you for joining me tonight.
Yeah, Drew, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and chat about mountain lions with you and kind of chat about what I'm doing. I mean, I can go into a quick intro, a little bio, if you're okay with that.
You bet.
Yeah, so I pretty much, I think like most of your listeners, I grew up in the Midwest, and I grew up hunting deer and turkey in Michigan. Really enjoyed living in Michigan. I went to college in Michigan, and then I ended up moving to Vail, Colorado. And I spent 15 years in Vail, Colorado. I was hunting elk, hunting deer, hunting turkey, bear, and also was a fly fishing guide in Vail. So I really enjoyed my time living in Vail. Saw a few mountain lions in Vail kind of when I was hunting, kind of, piqued my interest a little bit. But then I moved to Washington State, up to Seattle. And that's kind of where I started hunting, getting interested in hunting mountain lions. My good friend, Jared Crandall, him and myself and a group of guys would always hunt together every year. And two guys in the group harvested two mountain lions that year. And they had shared some meat with us, and the meat was phenomenal. And I was like, wow, that's really kind of piqued my interest. So, so I lived in, obviously in Washington State for a while. I'm now in Oregon. I moved down to Oregon. And that's where I really started hunting mountain lion, was in Oregon. The laws are a little bit different here. But so really gave me an opportunity to hunt a lot more. But I've traveled on 5 continents in more than 20 countries, and I've eaten a lot of different foods. So eating mountain lion is pretty easy for me. I've been able to see the world. So you see, when you spend a lot of time overseas, you see how different people eat and different foods that they eat. So, but I've hunted and fished all over the place, from Alaska to caribou hunting in Labrador, to turkey hunting in New Zealand. So I've done a lot of hunting over the years, and I've been at it for a while, and kind of mountain lion's been my focus for a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome. How did you decide that you were going to call mountain lions? Because I always, when I think of mountain lion hunting, and when I've always thought of mountain lion hunting, I always think of hound hunting them. And what made you kind of go against the grain and say, hey, I'm going to call these things and I'm going to do this differently, and I would say definitely not the easy route.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a harder route. A couple things with that. Our state doesn't allow, or here in Oregon, it doesn't allow the use of hounds. It only allows the use of calling. So it forces you to kind of be into that. It's a lot tougher. A couple things with that, when you're hound hunting, I think it's a little bit easier, obviously. The dogs, get on the hound, or the hounds get on the mountain lion, and I've never hound hunted before. But I think once you get an animal treed, you can ID and sex the animal. You can, age the animal. Really, when you're calling, you don't get that opportunity.
Yeah.
You get 6 seconds. You see a mountain lion come in, you get 6 seconds to decide, is this one I can harvest? Do I want to harvest? And that's about it. So so really, kind of to answer your question, that's what the state kind of offered. And I know one of the things we were going to talk about was, maybe if I was from the Midwest and I wanted to come out and do some hunting, what states would be best. And so I think you and I are going to kind of cover some laws and regulations in some states and that kind of deal. But I'll touch on that a little bit more about what states you can and can't do some
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. What states can you hunt them, and like are is Oregon unique in that they're the only state that doesn't allow hound hunting, or
Nope,
what's the
there's
consensus?
a couple other states, I guess I guess me being a Midwest guy, and if I wanted to come out, to do some mountain lion hunting, I think mountain lion hunting is pretty inexpensive, for a big game tag. A lot of the tags, are super expensive, $700 to hunt elk,
Yeah.
deer, and that kind of deal. And,
Low
so
end. Yeah.
there's a lot of different other states that offer some pretty good hunting. And I mean, I can kind of cover some of those if you'd like.
Yeah.
I looked at a handful of them. Nevada was one of them. And they pretty much have a season from March 1st through the next February if the quota isn't met. The biologists set the quota for each unit.
Yep.
And you can hunt day or night in Nevada. And their
Okay.
tag runs about $259, 155 for the hunting license, and then 104 for their actual mountain lion tag. They do not allow dog hunting, no hound hunting whatsoever. So it's calling. Utah is another one I looked at. You can hunt year round in Utah. There's no limit. As of 2023, the law changed to allow to hunt year round. No permit required. And the good news is you can use trail cameras July 31st through December the 31st.
Hmm.
Their tag's pretty inexpensive. It's about $34.
Wow.
And yes, they do allow a little bit of hound hunting. And then some units they don't allow it at all. So it just depends on by unit.
Yeah.
Washington State, they're pretty much September. Their season runs from September 1st to March 31st. And one tag, one mountain lion per tag. And their cost is about $220.50. And they do not allow dog hunting or hound hunting at all. It's only calling.
Hmm.
Idaho is another one I looked at, and their season, it kind of depends on the unit. Runs anywhere from August the 30th through March. Some units into June, and that's one tag. You can run calls and dogs or hounds in some units, and their tag's about $226. So they're a combination of both. I looked at Montana, and Montana, some sort of fashion, you can hunt from September through April the 14th. And there's a quota for their units that's set by the biologist as well. Their laws are interesting. If you're going to hunt Montana, you need to look at their book. It's super thick on their laws and
Yeah.
regulations. So you really got to do your homework for Montana. And they're one of the more expensive states. They're $345, and they allow hounds, and they also in some units, calling as well. And then it comes into Oregon, where I'm at. They're year round. One tag, and there's also a quota. As of 2019, they're allowing decoys to use. So when you set up your call, you can use a decoy, which is great. Kind of gets the mountain lions interest a little bit. And that tag,
Yeah.
$188.50. And these are all non-resident prices that I'm saying.
Yep.
And then obviously no hounds. So I did look at Arizona, Wyoming, and South Dakota, or I didn't look at those. Those are other states. But I guess long story short, the tag is pretty inexpensive and compared to like deer and elk and other big
Yeah.
game. And if you were, from the Midwest and, you were really into coyote hunting or you were into bobcat hunting, this is another option, especially with those year rounds. You can come out and camp. You can drive out. We kind of talked about the pricing on those those couple of states. And Utah, I mean, basically it's $34 and you can hunt year round. Uh,
Right.
Oregon came in at the second one at $188 for a non-resident. And you can hunt year round too. So the other
Hmm.
states were a little bit more expensive and had a lot more restrictions on when you can hunt. And a lot of it was over the winter months. So you really wouldn't want to camp. I mean, you'd have to hotel and your cost would go up a little bit. But yeah, if you were from the Midwest or somewhere and you really wanted to come out and do some mountain lion hunting and you're already probably really good at calling, from, calling bobcats and coyotes,
Right.
or coyote, you could do a pretty good job out here. Especially Utah is allowing you to use game cameras from July the 31st through December. So if you looked at like you had, spring turkey season and then you went into bear season and you were looking for something to do, I mean,
Yeah.
end of July, August might be a really good time. I've harvested a mountain lion in the month of August before. So in the summer months. So, I mean, it might be really good. You could drive out, camp, and you could do a really inexpensive mountain lion hunt for, you know, Utah, $34, or maybe even to Oregon for 188,
Right.
those other states are a little bit more expensive and they're a little more restriction on times. So,
Huh. Can you hunt them with thermal in any states? Or I know the one
some,
said you could hunt at
I,
night, but
yeah,
is
I don't think any of the states besides Nevada allows you to do day or night.
right.
That's the
Yeah, I
only
didn't
one
know
I
if
know.
that meant because even if it says day or night, that might mean without the aid of thermal. I have no idea, but
Yeah, I know I'm not sure on Nevada's law on that, but that was the only one that I did know of that
yeah,
you were allowed to hunt day or night. So I got to imagine at some point. But not in Oregon, not where I'm at.
yeah, I gotcha. Is there a best time of year? Like, is there a
There
premium
is.
time to go?
Yeah, great question.
Like, if a guy wanted to go out there and hunt them, what would be the best time to go? I guess.
So, springtime is the best. That's when all your calving's going on for the elk. That's when
Yep.
all the deer are dropping the fawns,
Yep.
and the mountain lions really kind of put the hammer on the fawns. So, really for me hunting, I really look forward to the springtime. Because you're pretty much using distress fawn, some kind of distress call, or
Right.
usually the deer drop first and then the elk are second. And man, that just gives you an opportunity to, all those fawns are definitely crying out there and making noise. And man, it
Yeah.
really opens up an opportunity for us as hunters to capitalize on that good part of the season. So that's my favorite time to go for sure.
Yeah. I gotcha. Okay, so my next question would be if I was gonna come out there and I was gonna, okay, so I picked the best time of year. I'm gonna go in the spring, and then how do I decide like, okay, this area looks premium for mountain lions? Is there any rhyme or reason to it? Or you just looking
Yeah.
for big vast country? I guess kind of what would a guy might look for?
Yeah, for me, what I kind of look for is dense, popular, or wooded population of conifers and that kind of deal. I don't hunt a lot of open logging areas. I mean, I do a little bit maybe on the edges of calling and stuff, but the majority of the mountain lions that I have experienced are in the dense, wooded areas, which is pretty easy. With Onyx, makes it so easy now to do some e-scouting.
Yep.
You can go through, try to figure out, where are some good areas that haven't been clear cut or been clear cut in the years past. There's really dense logging roads that haven't been utilized in a long time. Those are the areas you really want to key in on. And scouting is pretty important. If I was going to come out here for a week and do some mountain lion hunting in Utah or in Oregon, being that those were the two best states that we kind of narrowed down to. I would think that I would really want to focus on those type of areas that offer really dense wooded area to
Hmm.
give. I mean, I think it's the same with bobcats as well. It seems like the more bobcats we call into are usually in those areas as well. But anyways, e-scout those areas out, figure them out, set trail cameras. If I was out here for a week, I would set my trail cameras and do as much scouting as I could in those areas. Do some, camp pretty close to the areas that you're going to hike into. But when I do my loop, I try to figure out a loop that's anywhere between 6 to 10 miles and gives me a few isolated calling spots. Obviously use as much woodsmanship as possible to,
Right.
ID, you know, um, some sign that mountain lion are in the area.
Right. So you mentioned when you're talking earlier that you need to make a decision on whether you can shoot them or not. So does that mean is it okay? Like, can you only shoot males, or is there any
Nope,
like?
here in Oregon, it's any mountain lion. And obviously you get a quick window about once that mountain lion comes in, he comes into your call, looks at the decoy, figures out that something's not up. You're usually hunting in a pretty tight area, which would
Yeah.
be a logging road. You're trying to call the mountain lion into those logging roads, those old logging roads. So they're pretty skinny. Only gives you a quick opportunity. The mountain lion is pretty sly, obviously.
Yeah.
The way that it works here is the biologist kind of set the protocol for the quota. I think once they reach, I'm not sure, Drew, but it could be 12 to 17% of females harvested. They might close down that area.
Okay.
In my area that I hunt, I think in the Northwest, I think there was only 84 mountain lions harvested by hunters, and I think it was in the 70s for depredation. In that
Yeah.
area. We have one of the more kind of on the western side of the state is a little bit better than the eastern side of the state.
I gotcha. Um, okay, I'm just thinking as a non-resident, I've been out west elk hunting a handful of times and whatnot. And so if I'm looking at like areas I want to go, is the quota number something that is public, like people can see that what the
Yeah.
quotas are for all these areas? So like
Yep,
in
you can
theory, if
go.
an area has a super high or higher quota or the highest quota of all of them, in theory, would that area have the most mountain lions?
I don't know if that's necessarily true it's probably the amount of hunters more
Okay,
than the amount of mountain lions. So, and then
right.
probably, um, you know, I guess, um, just the population as far as the density of people that are actually hunting, so
Yeah, I gotcha.
makes a good difference. So, um, but I can look really quick on the Oregon Mountain Lion quota. You can just basically go on. They have a quota on the website, and it's actually showing this year. I was just looking at last year, so they've updated it now. And it looks like just in our area since the beginning of January, two mountain lions were harvested already this year by a hunter, and then seven of them were by non-hunters, and that's for depredation. But you look at the Blue Mountains, which is on the eastern side of the state, they've
Yep.
already harvested 9 mountain lions since January 1st.
Huh.
So yeah, that's usually our side is a little bit higher than the Blue Mountains, but yeah, you can go on that website and kind of look at it, and you can look at the quota. It's updated, I think, every other month, or at least not at least every month. So the biologists do a pretty good job of staying on top of that.
Right. Um, so do you call Bob or do you call mountain lions in very often and not kill them, or do you if you call one in, is it typically you're getting a shot at it?
Yeah, so I guess two things on that. So one of my good friends, Josh, who I hunted with quite a bit last year, um, he does quite a bit of hunting. He does some coyote hunting. He does bobcat hunting. I think he's Naughty Dog Outdoors is his handle on Instagram. And Josh and I hunted together quite a bit. Josh harvested a mountain lion in the early part of the season in springtime. It was in April. And he was able to, tag out pretty quick. So I guess to answer your question really short, between Josh and I, we called in 5 mountain lions last year together between the two of us. My first one that I called in, I was by myself, and it's kind of funny you asked the question. I'm sitting here on my desk. I have 2 spent shells on my desk here. One was the one I harvested, and one was that I missed. I was sitting there. I was just, I had called for about 25 minutes already, and I just looked down at my cell phone and I kind of clicked the button. I wanted to see how much time had passed, how long I'd been calling. I had my kind of collar over to the side a little bit, so I wasn't looking at the timer on my collar. I just
Yeah.
so happened to look at my phone, and then when I looked up, there was a mountain lion 35 yards away from me, staring at me.
Oh
So
no.
within that split second, it came in. I didn't have much of a choice. I pulled up my rifle, and as I pulled up my rifle, he turned and I had shot, and I shot right over the top of him, being at 35 yards. And so I kept that spent shell on my desk to remind myself to not, you work hard all season to make
Yep.
sure you're paying attention during that time. So it's my reminder to pay attention and not look at my phone. So I had missed that one, and then maybe a month later, I actually had harvested one. Um, you can. I think Josh had called in two mountain lions after that, and in Oregon you can get a second tag. So it's two tags total for the year. Josh had a second tag. He called in two mountain lions, and one was a female, one was a younger male, and Josh opted not to harvest those. So Josh had that option. I did not have that option last year since I had shot and missed. But
Right.
it just depends on how well you've done over the year, how many days you've put in, kind of where you're at. But it's a lot of work, obviously. So
Yeah.
you pretty much want to try to harvest and get some meat in the freezer for sure.
Yeah. Interesting. Um, yeah, that's crazy. I'm guessing that's got to be a different kind of rush when you see them online coming to the call.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's kind of interesting. I mean, like, I make sure I use an e-call. I definitely don't use
Yep.
hand calls or anything because I don't want to mount. And I hunt by myself quite a bit. I do hunt with Josh quite a bit. I do have some other individuals, some friends that I do go out with and stuff, but I hunt a lot by myself. And so I like to maybe keep, if you're using a hand call, I feel like they're going to come right to you.
Yeah. I wouldn't
Um,
want to do that either.
yeah. And a lot of it kind of depends on your setup too. Like that day that I missed, I was kind of doing a quick setup and I'm like, oh, I couldn't really get past 35 yards. And I normally want to be further away from my call, but that's as close as I could get. And it was a tight old logging road.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just want to try to make sure that you're not getting called in, calling a mountain lion and all of a sudden it's on top of you. It's definitely a little bit, nerve-wracking when all of a sudden you have this mountain lion 35 yards from you and you weren't
Yeah, I
prepared
bet.
for it.
Yeah, I bet. Uh, do you call in bobcats and coyotes often?
I do. I do. I pass on the coyotes because I don't want to shoot and then, have the opportunity of a mountain lion coming in just a little bit, after that. It seems like if you call normally, the coyotes usually come in really quick,
Yeah.
usually around 15 minutes or whatever. It could be even shorter than that, where a mountain
Yep.
lion, when I do a stand, I'm, an hour and a half, hour and 20 minutes, definitely an hour. It takes longer.
Yep.
That last bobcat that I called in just about a month ago, or maybe, yeah, about a month ago, it took 40 minutes for him to come in. But we do call in bobcats. And I have been passing on the bobcats. And then this year I kind of said to myself, yeah, I was going to. During the bobcat season, the season here in Oregon, it's pretty much from September 1st through February the 28th. So pretty short season. I was working quite a bit, and then I was traveling in Asia. So I was going to miss 90% of the season. But next year, hopefully, I'm not traveling as much. And next year, I want to kind of try to do a little bit more bobcat hunting. But yes, we do call coyotes and we do call bobcats. But I've had stands where you don't call anything in but just a mountain lion as well.
Right. Yeah. Have you ever on the stands you've called mountain lions in? Have you ever called in coyotes and bobcats beforehand?
Oh yes, yes, yep. Never bobcat, only coyote. So the
Interesting.
coyotes kind of either figured something was up or whatever, and they were gone. And I kept calling for a half an hour longer, and so happened to call in a mountain lion later, and that
Yeah.
happened literally on that stand that I was telling you about that I had missed.
Yeah. Um, a big mountain lion. How big is a big mountain lion?
I mean, there's a huge difference between a small mountain lion and a juvenile male or a female. A big mountain lion is definitely it's two different worlds. So and I guess it's definitely a little bit more intimidating too.
I bet.
In between the two. But you'll know, believe me, when you're calling in A Big Daddy. I have one on camera. Then I kind of been going after a little bit this year already, and then I have a smaller. I gotta imagine it's probably a female, or a juvenile male. But I mean, even on the camera, I had posted a couple of those photos on Instagram, and it's two different worlds. So
Yeah. Interesting. I'm hearing a lot of the things you're saying. Um, it reminds me the mountain lion hunting reminds me of basically bobcat hunting. I mean, basically it sounds like maybe your stands might be just a little longer than what a lot of people would probably consider as a bobcat stand. I know a lot of people will sit for upwards of an hour on a bobcat stand. If you're in like Kansas or somewhere down in, Texas or something, those guys will tell you 10 minutes and leave. But, up here, I know people that get them, in an hour, 50 minutes, 49 minutes, whatever, into their stands. It kind of reminds me of, similar. I mean, I suppose they're all cats, so I'm sure there's some similarities, but, um,
yeah, I
is
mean,
that
I would.
kind of similar to the strategy wise for bringing a guy from the Midwest, to go out there? Maybe he's used to bobcat hunting or has bobcat hunted. I would assume I'm assuming, but asking you, is that some of the same strategies you apply?
Yeah, I would totally agree with you on that. And if somebody was, wanting to come out and, they were a good bobcat hunter, I think those things are going to transition pretty easily over here, and give the opportunity because, yeah, it's a longer stand. You're calling for a lot longer. You know, this last mountain lion that I harvested actually came in and sat down and looked for a few minutes and then inched forward a little bit and was able to harvest that mountain lion. This last bobcat that I called in, I kind of got video, I mean, I knew I
Yeah,
wasn't going to harvest the bobcat, so I actually, kind of grabbed my phone and did some video, and you can see that he came in, went to the call, or went to the decoy, came back, stood back, turned around and looked. So I
yeah,
think the cats are, mountain lion and bobcats are more inquisitive
yeah. They're
than the coyotes or the coyotes will just come in really quick and hammer and
and then leave really quick.
yeah, exactly. Where, if you do get the opportunity to finally call in a mountain lion, it's kind of a slow process.
Yeah,
On some of the experiences, obviously the one that I missed, that was really quick. I don't know if that mountain lion saw me, at 35 yards and got nervous, about my call or whatever, but obviously it was right on top of my call. And I mean, that logging road wasn't very wide. You think about how wide a road is,
yeah,
I mean, especially an overgrown logging road, it doesn't give you a
yeah.
very big window. It's a tight window that you're operating in. It's a hallway, basically, is what you're operating in, and trying to harvest a mountain lion within that hallway.
Right. Yeah. No, I've seen some of your Instagram videos and stories and such, and it seems like they were just it seems like they would all of a sudden be right there.
Yeah, yeah, it's tight. So 35 yards probably isn't the best. At least 65, I feel more comfortable. Give it a little distance between myself and that game animal coming in.
Right. Yeah, and I'm guessing how hard is it out there to find these, openings and spots that set up good to call?
Yeah, I mean,
And
I
especially
think
when you're looking for thick cover and whatnot.
yeah, I think if you can spend some time, doing a little bit of hiking, a lot of mine was just e-scouting. Once you e-scout it, then you can figure out where it's
Yeah.
at and get into it. And then, once you get there, kind of look at what are kind of the best setups.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to do e-scouting. I mean, because I mean, even for me, I try to hunt 3 or 4 days a month. Year round, I kind of hunt a little bit more in the winter because my job gives me an opportunity to do more, but I try to take as many days as I can.
Yep.
I'm pretty busy, year round. I host a televised event every year for my job. And so I'm super busy with that. But I think if you can e-scout it and then you can get in there, a good, 3 days a month is pretty decent. And it's easy to see kind of what's on the e-scout to transfer to what's actually in the field.
Right.
Um, and do good setups. A lot of bends. I like to use bends or tees. any T in a logging road or a bend in a logging road. I like
Yeah.
to put my call up so I can have, coming in for two directions. The mountain lion or the bobcat, they're not going to come into the logging road and walk down the logging road to the call. They're
Right.
pretty much going to come. They'll figure out where that call is or where the decoy is. They'll sit and watch, and once they can sit and watch that a little bit, then they'll actually step out. And that's why I was originally saying you only have 6 seconds. They're going to step into that logging road and or that tight little hallway and give you a quick opportunity. So.
Right. Huh. Um, yeah, I would say, have you ever been able to see one come in a decent distance at all, or like, is it pretty standard? Like you're just seeing them quick?
Yeah, I have not, Drew. I know
Yeah.
that I've seen a couple of videos where some guys have called, a more open area. Maybe, some kind of high desert or that kind of deal. Unfortunately, where I'm hunting, it's pretty tight,
Yeah.
it's pretty tight. So I'm only seeing them for 6 seconds, you
Yep.
know. And I mean, Drew, I'm sure that there's been times where I've called bobcats in and I've called mountain lions in, never knew they were there. They just
Yeah.
came in and just sat outside of my call. I couldn't see them.
Yep.
I always kind of wonder about that when I go pick up my call or go pick up, did I sit long enough? Did I do everything? And at some point you got to give up and move on, I try
Yeah.
not to. But it's always a little nerve-wracking. I mean, if that thing's
Yeah.
been watching me for a little while, now I'm walking over to my call, and he knows that there's some kind of, prey in distress, or I meant some
Yeah.
kind of animal in distress, I mean,
Right.
what becomes the next prey?
Yeah, I've wondered the same thing when I've bobcat hunted too. Like, how do you know if there wasn't one sitting, you know, just off out of sight, sitting there the whole time
Yeah.
and, watching me. And I've always wondered that too.
Yeah, I guarantee you, Drew, it's happened to me enough. I've hunted enough that
Yeah.
I'm sure mountain lions have watched me more than I've watched them. So,
Yeah.
you look at the Blue Mountains that we were just talking about, where, in Eastern Oregon, where they've harvested 9 mountain lions already this year, by hunters. That area is a lot more open. I've hunted out there before and done some calling out there. Not as much as where I do, on the coastal side. And the
Right.
coastal side's dense. It's very dense. Where, the eastern side in those Blue Mountains is a lot more open.
Right. What sounds do you typically use? Is there any hot ticket for the mountain lions, or is it you never really know?
Yeah, pretty much I stick with distress. I'm not a I mean, I haven't had very good success with, like, the mountain lion whistle or the in heat,
Yeah.
call. So I used them, I don't know, a few years ago, and I just never had really good luck with it. So I stopped using them. I pretty much just stay with distress. And like I said, pretty much the springtime, when the fawns are dropping and elk calving's going on. I mean, that's the best time. I figure that's, I gotta imagine. So I try to use those type of distress. I use a lot of rabbit distress, different types of rabbit. We have snowshoe hare here.
Yep.
I do like that jackrabbit, I know
Yeah.
that's, not as prevalent as, the snowshoe hare, and the bush bunnies. So, but, I do like the rabbit. So, those are pretty much my main calls. I usually stay with distress, especially for
Yeah.
mountain lion. So,
I
I
gotcha.
know with hunting coyote, you can switch to, some yelps and some howls
Yep.
and that kind of stuff. Obviously, I don't give that opportunity with hunting mountain lion.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep. And use an e-call. What e-call do you use and decoy and what kind of stuff do you use there?
Yeah, so a couple things. As I had mentioned that I do a 6 to 10 mile loop. My pack is pretty heavy. It's got quite a bit of gear on it for me to get through the day. I like that Fox Pro Inferno, and then also the Prowler. Those are pretty good calls. The reason why I like those calls is basically it weighs a pound in my pack, and they're pretty small. And kind of the negatives of it, and they just really are not as loud. They don't cut through the forest density. They don't cut through the wind. So they're really good to use on like calm days, late evenings, early mornings when it's really calm and quiet out there. I know we've all kind of sat in the woods when it's extremely quiet. That's the best time to use those. When you do get a little bit of wind or any kind of, I use the X24, the Fox Pro X24. It's loud. It gets out there. You can hear that thing echo off a canyon over there. I know that I'm getting the volume.
Yep.
You can crank that thing up to 40, where, the Fox Pro Inferno, you can only crank that thing up to 20. So
Yeah.
that's a big, big difference. Like I said, I'm a big fan of the decoy, the Fox Pro X decoy.
Yep.
In 2019, state of Oregon allowed us to use the decoy, which I think is great because, you could be calling in a mountain lion and they can hear the call, but if they can get some kind of visual with
Yeah.
the fuzzy wuzzy on there and that thing,
Yep.
spinning. My friend Josh likes to use the bird, the blue jay. But if you can get any kind of attention onto that, it really gives the mountain lion an opportunity to kind of come in a little bit more, especially in those tight hallways that you're hunting in on those logging roads. And it gives them something to focus on and not focus on you. So,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that's definitely important, I think, too. My experience hunting bobcats, if you didn't have that decoy, it would certainly be a little more difficult. When they get locked on that call, sometimes that'll do the trick to get them to come in.
yeah, especially that last mountain lion I harvested, he actually, sat down and looked at that decoy for a while. I do know before 2019, there were guys using, like a type of decoy with, you couldn't have it, you could use a decoy, but you couldn't use it. It couldn't be motion,
Okay.
by battery operated or whatever. So I think they were using like kite strings, to pull the
Oh,
decoy and stuff. So,
yeah.
so it was good that the laws changed. I mean, it's already tough hunting mountain lions,
Yeah.
so the state's kind of improved it, especially, with the only opportunity is just by calling. So
Right. Um, I know you s- from following along your Instagram, you kind of are a big fan of using trail cameras when you're able.
yeah.
Do you have any kind of trail camera strategy? Like, do you flood an area with cameras to see if there's a cat in there, or do you like put one camera here, and then maybe you might put another one 10 miles down the road? I and next question to kind of tie into the same question here is, do mountain lions have a big territory? Are they relatively small home range? Kind of tie that into the trail camera question.
Okay, yeah. So on my loop, I do know that there is mountain lion in the area because of my scouting. I've seen track, on the side of the road and the logging road in the mud or whatever. So I know that there's mountain lion in the area. You can see scratching on trees where they mark their territory and that kind of deal. So I do know there's mountain lion in the area. So I set cameras. I have two cameras that I set on that loop. I know they're in there, so it's pretty easy for me. I'm not going in blind, so I already know I'm probably going to get a mountain lion on camera. Um, so I'm only using really two cameras on my loop. And then, as far as I'm sorry, Drew, what was that second part you asked me about
Just,
that?
do mountain lions have
Oh
big
yeah,
range,
the
small
territory.
range?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I forgot I wanted to get into that. So a bobcat's territory is much smaller than a mountain lion's. You're talking acres to miles. Um, bobcats, if you can get a bobcat on camera or you see a bobcat, your opportunity is way better with a bobcat. And I think, I was talking about Josh, Naughty Dog Outdoors. He called in 8 bobcats last year. He knows that the bobcats are in the areas. Their territory is much smaller. You get into a mountain lion, and male's probably a little bit bigger than a female, but yeah, they definitely mark territories. They overlap a little bit, but not much. But you're talking acres to miles. So, and I think that's why it becomes harder to hunt mountain lion, is because I know that I've in my 10-mile loop, I know that there's two mountain lions that I'm working that are in those areas. I have them on camera. But for me, it's just got to be there at the right time that they're there because they're
Right.
covering their entire area. It depends on density too. How many mountain lions are in, a square, area, whether that area is 100 miles or 50 miles. But, they can, mountain lions can venture out and their territory is much bigger. So that's why it takes longer, I think. Last year, it took me, I don't know, 30 to almost 40 days plus, I think, of being in the backcountry of hiking. And, I, I just had to be in the right spot at the right time.
Yeah.
And then also I had to pick a mountain lion that was, that was hungry. If a mountain lion just did a kill, he might hear the call, but he's, been sitting on a kill for a couple days. So he's not interested in coming to my call. So, I mean, so I gotta hit him when he's in that spot, in his territory, in that spot where I'm at, and then I also gotta make sure that I hit on when he's needing food or an opportunity. So, and I think that's I mean, you think about a mountain lion, a rabbit meal is pretty small compared to a deer,
Yeah.
and then you talk about a large. We were talking about large size mountain lions. I mean, think about they can take an elk down. I mean,
Right.
think about how big an elk is and how long they can feed on that. So,
Yep.
so, so yeah, territory is different between the two, but obviously a mountain lion a lot bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. So what you're saying is it's just like what we always say about coyotes. There's so many factors that can play into you not being successful. I think there's oftentimes more factors for you to be unsuccessful than there is for you to be successful, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely. And I think that's why it takes a while, and you got to be patient. For me, I enjoy hiking, and this, the mountain lion gives me an opportunity to hunt more days than normal because,
yeah,
if you think about your elk season here is like 4 days, so I get 4 days to hunt, and then my muzzleloader deer season is a week, maybe 10
yeah,
days, something like that. So I'm probably only going to spend 14 days in the field. This gives me an opportunity to hunt mountain lion. I can carry a small, either 22 or some type of shotgun. I can, hunt some rabbits along the way and, in between my walking in between spots or, some grouse or whatever. But it just extends my opportunity to hunt more. And then it expands my opportunity to fill my freezer as well.
right. Yeah. Interesting. What gun do you take with you when you go mountain lion hunting?
Yeah, so I use a couple different types, just two different guns. I use a 300 Win Mag, and I'm shooting a 180 grain bullet. That 300 Win Mag, I think is about what 200 or 2,900 feet per second. I feel like that's a pretty good knockdown, especially if you're going to
Yeah.
harvest a larger mountain lion.
Yeah.
Probably another reason why I don't shoot the coyotes with a 300 Win Mag or
Yeah. I
shoot a
suppose Bobcat.
bobcat. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
300 Win Mag, 180 grain bullets, pretty heavy. The other thing I like to hunt with is just my Thompson Center Arm Omega 50 caliber muzzleloader. I use 100 grains of powder on that and a 245 grain power built bullet.
Yep.
And I mean, I can get what 1,800 feet per second on that. So
Yeah.
I feel like those are two guns that feel pretty good about them, hunting mountain lion. I also carry just in my in my Kuiu pack, I have a little side pouches. I can carry a Kimber 45 handgun.
Yep.
Uh, just in case I have that situation again where all of a sudden a mountain lion's on top of me and I'm looking at my phone and I'm not supposed to be.
Right.
So
Yeah. I hear you.
I figured that.
Do you see bears or do you call bears in often? Because bears will come into distress, sometimes too, right?
Yep, yep, they will. So last year, my friend Josh, he called in a nice bear into a distress call. Our spring season is draw only, which I think yesterday was the last day to apply for the draw. I've been very fortunate to draw a tag the last 2 years for bear. So yeah, you can call bear in. It's not as common but as a mountain lion or bobcats, but you definitely can. And then our fall season is just over the counter,
Yeah.
and that opens in August and runs through. But yeah,
Interesting. So you're taking off on this 8 to 10 mile loop. I saw your videos yesterday. The snow looked like it was not very fun. Um, a guy from Wisconsin can relate to that. But what all are you taking with you? Like what's all in your pack? What are some things that you're taking along on the hunt with you?
yeah. So for me, you know, uh, yesterday was interesting. some winters we have a lot of snow and some winters we don't. Like last winter
Yep.
was great. We barely had any snow, so it was easy hiking. And then the winter before we had a ton of snow and you barely could get into some of my spots. I set cameras and or had set and you can't get back into them. So
Yeah.
the other day when I was hiking in, I had to park about down at the bottom, so it added about another mile and a half, 2 miles to
Ducks.
my hike on top of my loop. So I couldn't even finish my loop yesterday because I ran out of time. But yeah, you're pretty much post holing and that kind of deal. But um, you're out for the day. If you do harvest a mountain lion, you're packing out all your meat. You are packing out, pretty much the entire mountain lion, due to the fact that you have to turn in your mountain lion to the biologist to have
Yep.
inspection done. So there's some little bit that you're not taking. So you need a decent sized pack. But for me, I'm pretty much as far as boots. Zamberlin, the 292 mountaineering GTX or GTX boots. They're really good. And I'm using the Kuiu rain gear, the Yukon rain gear. I mean, it rains a lot here in Oregon.
Yep.
The summer it doesn't rain at all. So, but the winter months and that kind of deal. And then pretty much my pack is a 7,000. That's a 10-day pack for backcountry if you're up in Alaska or Montana or wherever you're going for a 10-day. I can get all my gear in there, and plus a decent sized mountain lion. I can pack that all in my pack and take it out in one shot. If you're harvesting a big, large tom, it's probably going to be a little bit, and you're going back to get a little bit more.
Right.
Um, but in my pack, I just have the backpack rain cover, the Kuiu back rain cover, just for the rain. And then I use a Garmin Mini 2 satellite communicator just so I can text message. No cell service pretty much once you get into the backcountry there. I have a Wyoming saw and a knife, some game bags, small ropes and pulleys. If I do the gutless method, I don't need the pulleys. But if you end up harvesting something and it's on a steep slope and you're by yourself, and then one
Yep.
of the most important things is the MSR Mini Works, the EX backcountry water pump. On that loop, you just can't carry enough water, especially during the summer if
Yeah.
you're hunting and that stuff. You got to be able to pump some water somehow. So
Yeah.
those are kind of the main things I have in my pack, and just some small miscellaneous stuff, headlamp batteries, SDR card reader and that kind of deal. But and then my handgun. So
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So you're loaded down. I'm jealous that I can imagine mountain water is one of my favorite things to drink. And I'm jealous that you get to have it when it's real cold, even though it's
yeah,
pretty cold in the fall. But I can imagine it's a different cold in the this time of year with all that snow and stuff.
Yeah, springtime's great. Even during the summer, you get some really good quality water. So it's nice to have a pump. We were talking right before we came on. I was up doing a mountain goat hunt up at 14,000 feet and back in Vale, and we were pumping water every day. I mean,
Yeah.
we were just drinking a ton of water up there, and that's some of the best water. I mean, I think it's
Yeah.
even better than the Oregon water. It's when you can get to any kind of, glacier or somewhat of
Yeah.
packed snow that's melting, and some of the best water I've had all season. So I don't know, maybe it's the experience where you're back at home in Vale and you're pumping water, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, that's the same thing. When we go elk hunting, we go backpack. We're back for, 5 days or whatever at a time, and we're just pumping water every day and refilling when you need to refill and whatever. And that's one of my favorite things about it, honestly. It's just something about the water is so much better.
Yeah, that MRS or MSR Mini Works, that pump is phenomenal. Probably one of the best pumps. Years ago, I mean, like 15 years ago, I was using like the Sweetwater pumps. Those were really good. And then I think this one's the best pump on the market for it. It's easy, throws in my backpack, does a great job filtering. Josh, myself, and another buddy, we're up doing some turkey hunting. Out towards the Blue Mountains, that eastern.
Yep.
Um, Oregon, and we were pumping water every day because we were camping and stuff. So it's obviously needed, especially when you're hiking, and then you're doing some mountain house or some peaks,
Yep.
dinners and that kind of deal. So obviously you need water for that as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Yeah, and sometimes I bet and when it's cold and whatever, sometimes that warm meal can really hit the spot if you have a jet boil or whatever with you to have a warm meal.
Yeah, last year for spring bear, it seemed to snow every day during spring bear season in the beginning. And that's when I had the most amount of time to hunt. So April, it was every day it was dumping. I mean, I'm trying to be, kind of below the snow line, but,
Yeah.
right at the snow line. And it just seemed like every day it was snowing on me and I was trying to find a spot to pump some water. And I did, even eating some ramen and
Yep.
kind of a little burner that I bring with me. So it makes a huge difference when you're getting dumped on all day and,
Yeah.
you're trying to figure out why you're sitting on a hill by yourself and not seeing anything.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, One thing I was thinking about too, we kind of talked briefly and you mentioned it before. There's something going on in Colorado right now that the mountain lion hunting's a little bit under fire. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, and I think I think that originally kind of what got me, interested in getting together an Instagram account. I just wanted to have more awareness. That Prop 127 that came out, it was, I don't know, it was frustrating for me just due to the fact that the public was going to make a decision on mountain lion hunting, and I really want to feel like it should be the biologist. It was kind of hard for me to think about, I guess it'd be like, I don't know, you would take, for instance, a golf event. You'd have Rory McIlroy or Tiger Woods or Ernie Els, something like that. And, those guys are the best, at what they do, best playing golf. And it'd be like having the fans make a decision on how they should hit the next shot, how they
Yeah.
should handle their course management, how they should, what clubs they should play and that kind of
Yeah.
deal. And so the crowd is actually, telling Tiger or Ernie or Rory how to play this golf course and how to play that hole, which I think is almost the same thing as what the public is telling the biologists what they should be doing for their job, and how they should be managing the wildlife. And
Yeah.
I've dropped my mountain lion off, and they go through and do an inspection on it. And in talking with the biologist, those guys are incredible what they do at their job. They're so smart. They're so in tune to conservation and habitat management and what's best for the mountain lion population and that kind of deal. And to have the public kind of voice it, their opinion, and and go to a vote, I don't know. It's just really hard for me to understand. So I was a little bit frustrated with it, and it felt like there wasn't enough communication or enough voice of people, talking about mountain lion hunting and that kind of deal.
Right.
So I just decided, all right, hey, I'm going to try to share what I'm doing, which is an interest to me, and talk about everything within my Instagram account that I'm posting, about the meat quality and about the hunting and the tactics and that kind of deal. So it really kind of inspired me a little bit. And I just wanted to kind of be a little bit more of a voice. I know my voice is, pretty small, but there's some bigger voices out there. But that Prop 127 really got me going because obviously I lived in Vail for a long time, haven't lived
Yep.
there in a while. Excuse me, and in Colorado, but haven't lived there in a while. But I just felt like it was important to communicate that, whether it's to our group, of hunters and or a group to non-hunters. I'm sure that your Instagram account, I'm sure that there's other Instagram accounts where there's other people looking at it that are non-hunters as well.
Yeah,
So it's a
for
good way
sure.
to kind of to voice it and put that information in a good light.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. Yeah, I think you're onto something there. It's definitely I think something that's probably pretty overlooked. I think everybody gets so wrapped up in big game. Everybody's so wound up about the draws all coming into Colorado. Everything's going to a draw, and then they got the wolves getting introduced. All this stuff that I think the mountain lion maybe got kind of lost in the shuffle. Because everybody was posting about the wolves and about the draws and stuff like that, but you didn't see too much about the Prop 127. So,
Yeah. Well, I'm glad it
uh,
failed. I think that was the biggest thing. I think that really could put the leadway for other states. I think that, if that would have passed, I think it would have been trouble for a lot of other states, but I'm glad it didn't pass. I'm glad that everybody in Colorado really kind of sees what's important. I know California's got some different looks and some
Yeah.
struggles, and
Yep.
especially with the population and what's happening. So,
Yes.
end of the day, we got to let the biologists do their job, and they've got to make the decision, and they're the experts in the field. You're not going to ask a crowd how to hit a golf shot or how to do course management. I don't think we should be doing that for our wildlife
Exactly.
biologists. Anybody that spent any time with a biologist and kind of listened, their education and their thought process, um, those are the people that are the experts, and we need the experts to make decisions and not just regular, you know, guys like you and I that
Yeah. What's
are
opinions?
not experts in that field. I mean, if you interviewed
Yeah.
a biologist on mountain lion hunting, I think that you would get so much more technical information than just a guy like me that's just out hiking and trying to put some meat in the freezer.
Right.
Those biologists I mean, they could give you such more technical information, and they're just such good experts.
Yeah. 100%. I totally agree with you there. Yeah. Yeah. It's just crazy. It's unfortunate part of the, some of the things we in the world we live in today. But it's there. There's no other way to put it other than the experts should be the ones making the decisions. Same with, everything, right? In my opinion, it's a no-brainer, but obviously it's not me making the decision, and there's a lot of people that don't feel that way.
Well, I'm glad the residents of Colorado stood up and voted, and it didn't pass. And like I said, that's the groundwork for the future for other states moving
Yeah,
forward. You know,
for sure.
and I think there's some restrictions. Like, I mean, that's even a big difference. We go back to like when I lived in Washington, up in Seattle. I didn't get the opportunity to hunt as much because that season is pretty short, and that season's been changed and regulated. There's no more spring bear hunting in Washington State.
Yep.
So here in Oregon, it gives me a lot more opportunity. So especially with bear and with mountain lion.
Right. Yeah, for
And
sure.
I didn't want that to change, Drew. I didn't want it to change here in the state. So I guess maybe that's why I felt like having a voice
Yeah.
would help a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't blame you there. Yeah, and I mean, has hound hunting always been illegal there, or did that change at some point in time?
Yeah, I think it changed in the early 90s. Obviously, I didn't live
Okay.
here in that time. I was in Colorado at that
Yeah.
time, but I think it changed in the early 90s.
So it's been a
And
long time.
yeah, it's been a long time. It changed and that kind of deal. And you know what? I think even by calling, I mean, they're still doing pretty good. I mean, they're still the biologists are still managing the population and doing it the right way. Like I said, that if they hit that 12 to 17% in any unit, I think of females that they'll meet the quota and change, that area will be closed. So
Yeah.
I think they're still doing good. I think the only difference is that, you really get an opportunity with hound hunting to really be able to look at the age of that mountain lion, to look at the sex of that mountain lion and
Yeah.
make a decision before you harvest. Where here, you just really don't get that opportunity. You get
Yep.
6 seconds and that's it.
Yep.
And you're lucky if you get 6 seconds.
Yep. You get an opportunity is what you get.
Yeah, exactly. And going back to where we were talking, if somebody wanted to come out here and hike and spend a week, I think it's an opportunity. You could still make it happen. It's a possibility. The percentage is pretty low of harvesting one. But it's still very good possibility. But the possibility is still there for me too. I'm spending a lot of days in the backcountry hiking and that kind of deal. It just comes down to timing, right
Yeah.
spot, right time.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. No, I totally agree with you. And like we said, sometimes the factors are not in your favor, but you're out for that one time that they are in your favor.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Jim, I really, really appreciate you joining me. I learned a lot. This was fun. I'll let you get back to your night and tell everybody where they can find you on Instagram and wherever you want people to follow along with you. And then I'll put it all in the description below so they can find it. But let everybody know where to find you.
Yeah. Pretty much the only social media platform I'm on is just Pacific North, or it's PNW, Pacific Northwest underscore mountain lion, or underscore mountain lion. So PNW underscore mountain lion underscore so lion. But that's my Instagram, and you know, I try to post some things on there. I am selling some mountain lion hats. I've been selling some hats. I'm trying to make a donation to the Vale initiative for bighorn sheep. There's a wintering ground that's just outside of Vale. I saw the bighorn sheep every day when I was at work, and would look up there, and they were going to build some condos and that kind of deal. And they came in, the Sheep Foundation came in and helped with that to basically make sure those winter grounds were there for the sheep. And so I figured, why not? I'm a bald guy. I like hats, so figured I'd sell some hats and try to make a donation a little bit to that sheep foundation, or the sheep initiative in Vale, and so I'm using some of my proceeds from some of my hats. But yeah, pretty much just on Instagram, and that's about it.
All right. Sounds good. I'll have everybody get over there and give you a follow. And I think everybody might be thinking about mountain lion hunting now.
Yeah, hopefully we can get some opportunity to have some guys come out, and they'll send you and I a message just saying that they had some success out this way.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, so thank you, Drew.
All right. Thank you, Jim. We'll see ya.
Okay, cheers.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining me for this week's episode. Big thanks to Jim. That was an awesome episode. I'm really glad we were able to get on and record that. Follow his Instagram. Check him out. He's a good follow. A lot of cool stuff to do with mountain lions. So, and as always, find me on Instagram, Predator Podcast _Drew. I post more day-to-day things on there, more daily hunting things and whatnot. And of course, join my Facebook group if you haven't already. A lot of good information, a lot of good interaction from other hunters, and good stuff on there. So find the link in the description below for that as well. And as I mentioned before the show, I'm going to be at the Minnesota Deer and Turkey Classic this weekend, March 15th, 2025, at the River Brothers Outfitters booth. Come check out the new performance system. It is awesome. Come talk to me. I could show it to you guys, and it's definitely next level. So I think that's all for this week. So we'll be back next week for another episode of the Predator Podcast. And until then, shoot straight.